And I think for lots of women around the world as well, especially in the Muslim world, that has been a big movement as far as women are concerned in Muslim societies. So I'll move on to the next page. And tricky. Yeah, here we go. Okay, this is, if you look carefully, it says August 1979. August 1979, remember where you were and which government was in office in 1979. It was Callaghan going, Mrs. Thatcher coming, okay? So that is the context, political context. And also from the writing, Islam with a fascist face, I think you would, if you spend few minutes even thinking about that photograph, which was taken in August 1979, and the title, that will tell you something about what followed, okay? What followed in Iran. Because the terms fascism, I think, has got resonation and has got a connotation in the political system in Europe. We know what the fascist regimes did. So you can kind of draw a imagery parallel line with what happened in Europe. Now, if we move on to the next slide, this was the main caption of this article. The caption said, "The revolution turns to repression." Fred Halliday reports from a country which the Islamic leaders, unable to rule, are dragging to a bloodbath. 24th of August, 1979. 44 years it has been, as Fred Halliday has said, nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is the reporting of these events and the awareness of people globally about this bloodbath. The bloodbath never stopped. It went up, it came down, but it never stopped. And if we move on to the next slide now, this is, for those of you which know a little bit about the politics of the last 50 years, this is Shah of Iran and wife Farah Diba, and they left Iran in January of 1978. And after they left, came another person, and that person, well, wrong slide, but we carry on with this. During the Shah's regime, in fact, women enjoy a lot of freedom. In fact, they could wear anything they like. They can hold jobs in any office capacity they like, ministerial role, it was total freedom. And this picture was taken in 1970s, and you can see Tehran at this time of the year. It snows quite heavily because it's by the mountains. And this picture was taken in one of the streets which is close to the mountains. And if we move on now to the next slide, 11th of February, it was about few days earlier, I think about 1 week earlier, this man arrived in Iran by the name of Ayatollah Khomeini from Neufchâtel in France, okay? And by popular vote, he became the de facto leader of the Islamic Revolution. And we see what happened afterward in the slides that would follow. And what I'm doing also, because there's a lot of slides, I'm not spending too much time. It will be like a quick slideshow, if you like. And then in some of them, I would stop and say a little bit more. And if we move on to the next slide. So in 1979, in fact, the main slogan of the Islamic revolutionaries was this slogan: neither East nor West, Islam is the best. And there is only one party, and that is the party of God. And the translation of party of God is Hezbollah. Hez means party and Allah, God. So that was the only allowed party in Iran up to this day. So a lot of people ask about this morality police, because the first time I think the Western media have been reporting morality police, because one young lady by the name of Mahsa Amini was killed, and it was in the hand of morality police. And people thought that morality police is just a recent phenomenon, whereas morality police was born few days after the 11th of February. So nothing new about that. And what you saw was men and women, young, they started getting hold of guns, and militias were formed, and anarchy. So next slide, please. Yeah. Again, for centuries, the Islamic hierarchy in Iran was seen as defenders of, if you like, poor, defender of socially deprived people. But then in 1979, they all started carrying guns. I mean, what kind of a clergyman would be carrying guns? But this became quite trendy. And in fact, most of them would put a gun before their prayer mat. So that became quite fashionable. And I think to some extent, the days that they have got their sermon, still, some of them would be carrying an automatic rifle as a sign of saying, we would enforce our will with the gun. The logic will come out of the barrel. And this is again, was one of the first pictures taken just after the Islamic Revolution. And we have to remember the context. The context is Cold War. We're at the peak of Cold War. Afghanistan already been invaded by Russians. Again, we're seeing the same thing happening on the other front. Ukraine being invaded, but that time Afghanistan is next borders with Iran. And I think lots of Western politicians were worried about Iran going to the hand of Russian as well. So what happened was they became the doctrine known as the Green Belt. The Green Belt simply was the ideology that said, okay, we can use religion as a belt to stop communism. And they did it in Poland, for example, and they did it in Iran, basically by supporting the fundamentalists to stop the left. So what they did, they had a free hand in starting their extermination program. Extermination program which basically wiped all the leftists in Iran, the communists in Iran, because we shared the largest border with Russia, USSR at that time. The Jews, the Baha'is, the Kurds, the Lord Turkmens, these are all minorities. They were killed, escaped, or silenced, and nothing has changed today.
What about Christians? You haven't put that on the list.
Yeah. The Christians, Iranian Christian, haven't I put that there? Jewish, no, I have not. But the Christians also, many of them left. In fact, the Christianity is Orthodox Orthodox Christians. Yeah, many also left Iran, and I have got friends which are living in Germany now, that they were, Christian. Yeah, but the Christian and the Jews were mainly tolerated, and they have MPs even today in Iranian parliament because they were seen as the main religion that they have got the established book, if you like. Okay, now, what we saw was an appointment on the 15th of February, a cleric by the name of Khalkhali, which was called executioner judge. He was appointed to exterminate basically any officials from the past regime. And he did start the job immediately. In fact, in the next photograph, no, I think we need to just go, yeah. Is it moving? Okay. In fact, these were the 4 top generals that they were executed 4 days after the Islamic militias took power, and they executed them above the residence of Mr. Khomeini. Where he lived, it was a school, and on the top of the school, on the roof, at midnight, they execute these 4 generals. And the story basically continued. Every day it was similar. This gentleman here, he was an Iranian prime minister for 13 years, a very decent man. And he basically stayed and said, I have done nothing wrong and I like to be tried. So they started a short trial, but in the middle of the trial, they shot him as he was coming from the toilet back to the courtroom. Okay. And this is unfortunately a very sad affair. And at the moment, they have made a documentary. As I'm speaking, this is the 3rd part documentary about his life. And in fact, this gentleman was highly educated at American University in Belgium during World War II. He went to school in Beirut. He studied politics. He could speak French and few other languages, Arabic, Persian, you know. Anyhow, very decent person, but as I said, they killed him during the